Hello, you're listening to the K12 Tech Podcast, bringing you insights into the world of education technology. Stay tuned as we discuss the past, the present, and most importantly, the future of technology in our schools. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the K12 Tech Podcast. This is the fourth episode of the Origins, and we're adding on at the end a focus of the guest choice. Today, we have Bill Stein.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You came from the furthest corner of Indiana. I appreciate you making the long drive to the studio.
Yep. If you think of Indiana as a boot, we are in the toe of the boot down in Mount Vernon, Indiana.
Yeah.
Very far away.
Yeah, it's about, what, 4.5 hours?
It was 5.5. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then you have the time change.
Yeah, the time changed and then changed back.
Yeah, so it's going to be bad going home tonight. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So, obviously, the Origins podcast, we start with, obviously, the origin of it. Like, what's your journey like getting into being what you kind of are today? So, can you start us out, middle school, high school, whenever you feel like you started to you started to lean or go towards this direction of your career?
Well, like a lot of stories, this one's going to start with my mother.
Yeah.
She and my dad bought me.
Starting at birth. Okay, good.
Yeah. She was there. Allegedly, no. She bought me an Atari for my birthday because I asked for it, and everyone else was getting them. It's just a game console. And I got it. I got some games. I played some games. I was just very bored with it. I didn't like the fact that all I could do was consume, when I'm more of a doer. So I asked her if she would take it back and get me a Commodore 64 computer, which also has a cartridge for games. So it does both. You could play games, and then you could also create using the basic programming language that comes with the Commodore 64. So I was able to get the best of both worlds and then write these little basic programs to do different things that I thought were interesting. The problem is I would write these very long programs, and there was no way to save it. So once you turn the power off, it was gone. So eventually I did upgrade and get a tape player connected to the Commodore 64 where you could actually save your programs to. So that's the spark that got me into computers. And then fast forward into high school, Evansville North High School, where I went, they developed a computer math program, a class. And I really wasn't into school per se very, very much. I struggled in most of my classes, not because I wasn't very smart. I think I was just bored. But I took this computer math class, and I could have taught the class. It was a very natural thing for me. And I don't know if they knew what to do with me because I needed more. So they developed a computer math 2 class, and I was literally the only person in that class. So that class challenged me a little more, and I just kept developing computer skills and just hooking stuff up at home with my stereo and just experimenting. Really a hands-on person. I don't really thrive in the sit and get type situation when it comes to school. So anyway, I graduated from North High School, and I did what everyone else was doing, which was I enrolled in University of Southern Indiana. My goal was to get, I forget what they called the degree back then, but it was CIM, computer type stuff. But I had to take all these math classes and other classes that really had nothing to do with that. And I struggled to even get a decent grade. So I eventually dropped out. Went to work, Godfather's Pizza, delivering pizzas, which is, could do a whole nother podcast on that experience. And my best friend's mom managed a computer store in Evansville, and they had an opening for a delivery guy, so someone who's going to deliver computers to companies and individuals. And at the same time, Godfathers was like, "Hey, you're a go-getter. You want to be a manager?" So I was like, "Do I stay in this restaurant thing and be a pizza manager, or do I go and deliver computers?" It seems like right now well, duh, you need to go do the computer thing. But I really struggled because I was going to get to be the boss, and I was going to make a lot of money at the pizza place. So, but eventually, I chose wisely, I believe, and became the delivery guy at CBM Computer Center, which is kind of like a computer land for any older folks listening. Well, I became friends with the techs that worked at this computer store, and they started calling me Junior Tech because I would go in there and try to help them. And eventually I was promoted to an actual technician. So now I'm fixing people's computers, computers for business. I'm going on service calls. And one of our big accounts was Bristol Myers. And for some reason, there was some sort of issue they had with our service department. So they sent me out to fix all the problems. Some of the problems were technical. Other problems were just like customer service type issues. And I brought that account back in good standing, and they rewarded me by making me the boss of the service department. So that was cool. I was barely 20 years old. And through that, things just kept getting better and better during my 3-year term there. But there were rumors that the company was going to be sold. The big box type stores were starting to come around. So the little computer shops, days looked like they might be numbered. So I got hired in Mount Vernon as the one sole computer technician.
Yeah, I love that journey because I think there's a lot of people out there who, they feel like they have to go to college for these like next steps, and college isn't for everybody. And I think that shift is happening in our culture of just having good technical knowledge can a lot of times be more important than just having base level college education, all of the fluff courses that you take. So I want to go back into a couple of the points you talked about. Commodore 64, your first computer. Are you just going to the library and finding manuals, or I don't even, where do you start? Because it's not, you don't have Google, you don't have YouTube videos. Where are you learning how to write code? Where's that coming from?
I believe it was built into the basic programming where you could, I don't remember what the command was, but you could issue a command that tells you what all the commands are. And then just through just sheer trial and error, you could look at an if-then statement and, okay, I think I understand, if, and then you put the variable in, then do this. So I think it was just trial and error. I don't know if I had a book. I was a member of the Commodore Computer Club for a while, but I don't really remember retaining a lot of information from that. So throughout my whole career, it's been a lot of trial and error, and that's where it started.
Yeah, and then when you got into high school and you took the computer math course, was that teacher just someone who was passionate about it and actually knew what they were doing, or was it just kind of like, we need a place to put people in a class? Like, what was that? And
I felt like it was kind of just thrown together. My teacher, I feel like she was maybe handed a curriculum that someone had developed on. I remember this being the history of computers and learning all about that, and basic programming language and some other programming languages. So I think, it came from above that we need to have this computer math class. That's really where I got started and really got the bug.
So for you, probably, did that class feel more like, what was it more of just like, I'm in this class, I'm going to consume this information given to me, but really, are you just messing around on a computer like the whole class, basically?
No, there were actual projects that we were asked to, write a program that does this. And, I could just get that out quickly. And then I was helping other people in the class. And when they put me in the computer math 2 class, I said I was the only one, but I was in with the computer math 1 people that hadn't taken the class yet. So I was in a class within a class.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of people who have been on this talking about classes within classes, and kind of like, well, we need this person to go somewhere during this period of time, and this is what they're interested in. So I love that. You've mentioned a few times about not the traditional education route. Was there anybody, any teachers or anybody in your life, or maybe even that computer company you work for, that saw your potential, that like help you develop and move into that, or took a risk on you? Do you have anybody in particular during that first phase that you talked about that, helped give you that confidence?
I'd say the senior year of my career at Evansville North High School, I took a data processing class, which was 3 hours a day. And I took that down at the EVSC, Evansville Vandenberg School Corporation office downtown. So that was 3 periods. And the teacher there, his name was Curtis Kinney. He taught data processing. So this is where I learned COBOL. We were, they had a giant mainframe computer there. And even though I did struggle in that class, just because, I don't know, I'm just not a good student. It's ironic that I work in a school now. He inspired me to continue on the track I was on. And when I did struggle, he was always there to help me, and I appreciated that man very much.
Yeah, I know for me, similar. I did, obviously go and get my degree and stuff, but the traditional education role was always really difficult for me. And it was the same thing. If I was interested in something, I can retain information. I can remember things from like elementary school that I was like so passionate about. If I wasn't passionate about it, it was really hard for me to retain, it's like in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
So I those people who look at you, because I think sometimes, at least when I was in school, maybe when you were in school as well, you being smart was how many A's did you get on your report card, rather than, wow, you can process these technical things really well that might not be quantified in all of these different subjects.
Absolutely.
I think that's important. And I think education, like these new polytechnic high schools, I would have loved that, project-based learning and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're seeing more of a movement towards that. And, I've talked to a few, even my kids going through school. I'm like, man, this is so different than what it was like for me in elementary school.
I wish I could go back.
Yeah. I know. So 34 years and 7 months with Mount Vernon Schools.
Wow. That's
you,
me.
yeah. You have a very unique view of probably seeing the first wave of computers into schools to now where we are, where computers run almost every single aspect of communication operations. Can you just take as much time as you want to talk about maybe the big stages of that transition that you went through?
So when I arrived, like I said, I was the computer department. They had just implemented an integrated learning system, which was called Wasatch, named after the Wasatch Mountains. It ran on IBM computers and on a token ring network. So not Ethernet, token ring. But we also had Ethernet networks in the schools. The schools were connected via 9600 baud modems. So there was some connectivity through dumb terminals and a mainframe, so they could do schedules and stuff. So this is 1991. Kind of moving forward, there was a point where we had to decide: do we want to fully implement this IBM token ring network, or do we want to go the Ethernet route? that was a big decision. Again, unfortunately, we chose wisely because have you ever heard of Token Ring?
No.
Okay. It's gone.
It sounds like something from Lord of the Rings to me.
Yeah. So we went the Ethernet route. And back then it was coaxial cable. And now, of course, it's category, whatever, 6, 7 connection. So really spent a lot of time building out the network. And then a few years later, my boss came to me and said, "What do you think about this internet thing?" And my boss was the business manager, Lauren Evans, at the time. And we developed a internet pilot program with University of Southern Indiana. We brought in some trainers, and we let our teachers pilot the internet. So we got them on the internet. We had a training day with beach balls, surfing the web. And wow, the internet changed everything, literally. Overnight, it seems like we were able to have electronic mail correspondence between staff members, where before we were just putting things in the pony or calling people. It really, you can imagine what kind of changes the internet kind of forced for us. And then I got to do things that I never really thought that I would have any, hands in, content filtering. So now it's my job, apparently, because no one else was going to do it, to monitor what people were surfing for on the internet, things that they shouldn't be. So I kind of giggled that I was having to, type in these really bad words that we wanted our content filter to look for. And I believe like this job, some jobs you get into and you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. If you walk into a tech role with that mentality, you're not going to last very long because it's evolving. It was evolving. It will always evolve, and you have to evolve with it. So as time progresses, new things come out, and you've got to embrace those. Not a lot of people like to embrace change, and as you probably know, some teachers have trouble with that. So managing change is something that I was not very good at in the beginning. One of the other big things that happened in Edtech was the implementation of smart classrooms. So interactive whiteboards, document cameras, software, touch panels. And one of my early mistakes was that, hey, if we put these in teachers' classrooms and give them some training, they're going to love this stuff. They're going to... That happened in silos. It happened in little pockets. You'd have those teachers that embrace it, and then other teachers that, no, that's not going to happen. So I really developed over time just the ability to kind of work with teachers from the ground level up instead of coming from the top down, and really getting buy-in from them before I move forward with anything.
Yeah, can you talk through, I think this is like a good, from someone who has the vast amount of experience you have throughout the years, a teacher who maybe is adverse to technology change, where did you have like a sense to lead a conversation like that, and to how did you let them know how important that was and for the future of students?
I would say one of the things we did is we developed a district technology committee that still meets to this day monthly, and the committee's made up of teachers that are put on there by the teachers union, so they get to decide who they put on the committee, and then also administrators, curriculum director, and then technology staff. So that's our That's our place where we can talk about where we are and where we think we need to be going, and really bounce things off, bounce ideas off teachers, and then also, if you're going to redesign a classroom, I think there might be an inclination to just do it and say, here it is. You've really got to get the teacher's input in on that. And I'd say some of our committee members are, I'd say these are teachers that not all of them are computer, savvy. I'd say some of them probably struggle. And you've got to have those voices in the room because you're serving all teachers, the ones that embrace technology and also the ones that struggle and don't see the value.
Yeah.
So the job is to show the value from the ground up, as I said, and see where it goes from there. And technology is not going to touch every teacher in the same way. You may use it sparingly and successfully, or you may be fully embracing it and using it successfully. So there's not like a perfect formula.
Yeah, agreed. So when you had sent me some notes of, kind of your career, you specifically mentioned the transition from GroupWise to Google Workspace.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to know, in knowing how much Google Workspace is used now, can you talk about that transition? And you've brought up a couple, like going to Ethernet rather than the token link. Or is that what it's called? Token ring. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys made that decision? Because I'm assuming, that I don't even know what GroupWise is. So
yeah. Have you ever heard of Novell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Novell was a network operating system, and GroupWise was a product of that same company. GroupWise was a email and calendaring program. And it's like, if you're a tech director, you never want to go through a student management system transition more than once. You don't want to go through an email transition more than once. These are like big changes that touch everyone. So the GroupWise to Google, basically, we called it Google Apps for Education back in the day, was painful. We did it in chunks rather than all at once. We told folks, like, we're gonna save about 2 years worth of emails. We're gonna transfer those for you over to Gmail, and we've got to get it all done by the X date. So, it was painful. It was, Google is different, especially when you're used to, in GroupWise, you would have folders you could put emails in. In Gmail, it looks like folders, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's just, you're just coding it in a different name. So that was a game changer, honestly. Just getting people on Gmail and then being in a room where folks are using Google Docs for the first time, and you look up and you're in the same document with everyone else in the room. And that just really blew my mind that we could all work in a document at the same time.
It's funny. That's a very similar story to almost everybody in technology. Is the first time they use a Google document at the same time. And it's like those big little things. Because I remember I'm like, why would I use Google? I can use Microsoft. They're like, you never have to save your document again. You're like, what? Everyone's lost hours of work one time in their life. But then I remember that specifically being, and I think those big little things are what get people bought in to these cool, like, oh, this is going to change the world.
Light bulb moments.
Yeah. Like, we're a Google shop here, and we constantly are working on Google Docs and Google Sheets, like at the same time. And like that amount of communication, you don't even get with people sitting next to you on your desk, because they're not, you have people talking over each other. It's like an incredible, transition?
Yeah, it literally changed the world. I mean, the internet was a game changer. Google Apps for Education was a game changer. And obviously putting devices in all students' hands was, talk about change management, was quite a game changer as well.
Yeah. So over your 30 years, can you highlight one or a few challenging projects or roles that you took on, and maybe which ones were the hardest and how they helped you, how they helped kind of like form you into the leader you are today?
Well, I would say one of those would be a failure. And to all those young tech directors out there, I will tell you that it's okay to fail. It's how you learn.
Yeah.
It's how our kids learn. We gotta let them fail, so they can experience consequences and hopefully learn from it. And one of my big failures was, we were doing inventory of all of our technology. To me, it seemed very inefficient. We were just writing things down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my ideas that I brought to the school board was to implement an inventory control system. They approved it, and I bought this very slick system that ran on our file servers in all of our buildings. Mm-hmm. There was barcode scanners. We put barcodes on the doors that had the room number, and then, of course, barcodes on all the equipment. But I left out one critical piece to that whole project, was that we didn't really have the staff to maintain the system. And that was a critical piece to making that system work. So, I learned that you've got to look at the whole project, and not just let's not just buy the shiny thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of schools maybe did that when one-to-one became a thing. They would focus on the device and not what are we going to do with the device.
Yeah.
So I would say that that failure was one thing that really helped me look at the entire problem we were trying to solve and how we're going to solve it.
Yeah, I think even me, just with a normal enterprise company, look, all these tools the software has, like, it's going to be like great, but then you don't have the people that you need to run it. We've wasted thousands of hours on failed software implementation, to the point now where we do so much vetting and consulting before we ever implement a new software or we develop a software. Because you're right. It's like, this is like, you can have something. It's like a nice tool. I heard someone say, they were describing Salesforce. They said, Salesforce is like you buying a Porsche and it shows up in all the it just shows up in boxes full of parts. It's like, well, I don't know how to build a car.
Yeah.
Everything's there, but I don't know how to like make it run. And then I wouldn't trust it to run after I put it together.
Yeah, no, definitely not for me either.
I think that's a really good point, is you'll never make that mistake again.
Absolutely not.
And it's also, in the beginning, and, I don't know at what stage, you did that, but, failing at an early stage is way better than failing when it's fully implemented and you've paid for all these different things and resources.